We're live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India News, India's voice. To meet Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping with trade, Pyongyang on the agenda. Li calls China a very important partner for peace. Prime Minister Modi pays tribute to Somnath Temple's resilience, pens on article, says it stands as glorious as ever, 1,000 years after the first attack, reiterates resolve to build Viksit Bharat by 2047. And on to the details now. The leaders of Denmark and Greenland have called on the United States to stop threatening Greenland, as U.S. President Donald Trump told U.S. media he absolutely needed the territory a day after Washington seized the leader of Venezuela. Now, Washington's military intervention in Venezuela has reignited fears for Greenland, which Trump has repeatedly made clear he wants to become an annexed part of the United States. Those fears were underscored by Trump's comments to The Atlantic magazine and a social media post by the wife of his most influential aide showing Greenland in the colors of the U.S. flag. Also in Greenland's case, Trump has claimed that making the Danish territory part of the United States would serve U.S. national security interest, given its strategic location on the Arctic. Trump doubles down on his claim that Greenland should become part of the United States, despite call by Denmark's Prime Minister to stop threatening the territory. Late on Saturday, Katie Miller, wife of Trump's Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller, posted the contentious image of the Danish Autonomous Territory in the colors of the U.S. flag on her X feed. Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen called the post disrespectful, but he also said that there is neither reason for panic nor for concern. Our country is not for sale and our future is not decided by social media post. And from a real estate deal to a national security standoff, Donald Trump's fixation on Greenland has evolved into a high-stake diplomatic crisis. As Washington appoints envoys and Denmark defends its sovereignty, the Arctic's future hangs in the balance. We trace the timeline of a struggle that is reshaping Western alliances and Arctic security as well. Now, it began in August 2019 when Trump first floated the idea of a real estate deal, which Copenhagen quickly dismissed. On January 7, 2025, by early 2025, the tone shifted. The president-elect refused to rule out force to secure the territory. Jan 7, 2025, simultaneously, Donald Trump Jr. arrived in the capital, signaling the administration's serious intent. And on February 3, 2025, Denmark's Prime Minister fired back, securing EU support to declare their sovereignty is not for sale. On March 4, 2025, before Congress, Trump escalated further, vowing to take the island one way or the other for security. On March 11th, local residents responded at the ballot box, turning out in record numbers to defend their national identity. On March 13th, Trump then pressured NATO, arguing that control of Greenland is vital to counter Russian and Chinese influence. On March 28th, Vice President J.D. Vance took the message to the ground, criticizing Denmark's Arctic defense capabilities. And on 28th of March, Greenland's youngest Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen, was sworn in, calling for immediate talks to de-escalate the tension. On 21st of December, by the year's end, the U.S. bypassed traditional channels, appointing a special envoy to advance its interest. On December 22nd, Denmark formally summoned the U.S. ambassador after Trump dismissed the 300 years of Danish history. On 4th of January 2026 and yesterday, Prime Minister Frederiksen issued a final urgent demand saying, "Stop the threats against your ally." And in the aftermath of U.S. military attack on Venezuela, Trump said on Sunday the U.S. would run the South American country. He also warned that the U.S. might launch a second strike if remaining members of the administration do not cooperate with his efforts to get the country fixed.
U.S. President Donald Trump said on Sunday that the United States might launch a second military strike on Venezuela following the capture of President Nicolas Maduro if remaining members of the administration do not cooperate with his efforts to get the country fixed. Trump's comments raised the possibility of further U.S. military interventions in Latin America and suggested Colombia and Mexico could also face military action if they do not reduce the flow of illicit drugs to the United States.
The country is a mess. It's been horribly run. The oil is just flowing at a very low level, much lower than, even if it was badly run, it should have more income, more oil than what they're doing. So we're going to have the big oil companies go in. They're going to fix the infrastructure and they're going to invest money. We're not going to invest anything. We're going to just take care of the country. We're going to cherish the country. We're going to take care, more importantly, of the people, including Venezuelans that are living in our country that were forced to leave their country. And they're going to be taken very good care of. Yes.
President Trump also insisted that the United States is in charge of Venezuela, but he was also dealing with the new leadership in Caracas, as Vice President Delcy Rodriguez was appointed as interim president of the country. Trump warned that she may have to pay a bigger price than Maduro if she does not cooperate with the United States. Maduro and his wife are now awaiting trial in New York City on federal criminal charges, including narco-terrorism conspiracy. Venezuela's interim president Rodriguez said that she was ready to work together with the Trump administration, asking the U.S. leader for a balanced, respectful relationship. Trump said on Saturday that the U.S. would take control of Venezuela's massive oil reserves and recruit American companies to invest billions of dollars to refurbish the country's gutted oil industry. Cuban government has said in a statement that 32 Cuban nationals were killed during the U.S. attack on Caracas. Trump knew the facts. He further suggested that America's bitter foe might collapse on its own after the flow of relatively cheap oil from Venezuela will cease.
One of the things that is happening, and I think you see it all the time, Howard, you've seen it, that Cuba is ready to fall.
Yes.
Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio defended the military activity and said congressional approval wasn't required as it was a law enforcement operation, not a prolonged invasion of a foreign country. Protests in favor of U.S. action and against it sprang up in different parts of the globe. People rallied against Trump's military actions in many U.S. cities, while Venezuelan citizens took to the streets in Peru and other nations to celebrate the capture of Maduro. Thousands of government supporters took to the streets of Caracas, voicing their demand for the return of President Nicolas Maduro. Bureau Report, DD India.
Well, following the U.S. military operations in Caracas, the United Nations Security Council will hold an emergency meeting on Monday. The meeting is to discuss the recent capture of the deposed Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife by the United States under the agenda Threats to International Peace and Security. Also, in the wake of Nicolas Maduro's dramatic capture in the U.S. military operation, Delcy Rodriguez, a staunch Maduro loyalist dubbed as the Tigress, has assumed the role of acting president of Venezuela. Delcy Rodriguez is Venezuela's acting president, appointed by the Supreme Court following Nicolas Maduro's capture in a U.S. military operation. Known for her hardline anti-imperialist rhetoric, earning the nickname the Tigress from Maduro, this trained lawyer has served in key roles across Hugo Chavez and Maduro-era governments. As vice president since 2018, she assumed the critical hydrocarbons ministry in 2024 and is considered one of Maduro's most trusted loyalists. After the capture, she declared Maduro the sole president, demanded his release and vowed to defend the nation. The military has recognized her as interim leader. From a powerful political family, her brother George Rodriguez heads parliament. She reportedly softened her tone and eased trade controls from 2020 to 2024, building a reputation as a savvy economic manager. She remains under US and EU sanctions over allegations of undermining democracy and human rights. US President Donald Trump has threatened her, warning she will pay a big price if she does not cooperate. And the head of Venezuela's military, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, urges the country's population to resume their normal activities after U.S. military operations. In a televised statement, Padrino said large parts of President Nicolas Maduro's security team was killed in the U.S. raid military operations on Saturday. Padrino did not give an exact figure of casualties, but backed the declaration of Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as interim president and said the armed forces have been activated across the country to guarantee sovereignty. And for more on this, we have my colleague Akshay Dongre joining us. Well, Akshay, with U.S. capturing a foreign head of state and bringing him to trial in a U.S. federal court, what can be the legal precedents now in international law implications, setting a precedent for authoritarian power, is it?
Well, absolutely. And in fact, it's absolutely illegal the way US has captured Maduro. That's pretty clear as of now.
Right.
So much so that their own allies like the UK have already started to wash their hands of the action that was taken by the US, with Keir Starmer clearly stating that they had no role to play in it. There are other leaders in Germany who are saying that they are expressing concern about whatever has happened. So the entire facade that US has created, especially during between the Russia-Ukraine conflict, that Russia is an aggressor, Russia needs to be punished. It has all fallen apart, given the fact that it's something that even Russia has not done. During its years-long conflict, USA has done by bombing another country, getting into the capital, capturing the president, flying them back to their country. It is, in fact, sort of shredding off the UN Charter. Now, the second point is about the United Nations Security Council meeting that is going to take place. It's absolutely useless as well. And the reason for that is there are 5 permanent members in the UNSC, the United Nations Security Council, and all of them have the veto powers, which means that they can stop any sort of resolution from being adopted, and US is one of them. So US obviously will not let a resolution be adopted against their own country. So that will be stopped. Come what may, it is only symbolic as far as the UNSC meeting is concerned. And as far as the South American countries are there, they are now really realizing the threat of what countries like Cuba have been calling an American imperialism in the region. There have always been diktats, there have always been pressure from the US for the economies there to act in a certain way, but now it's clearly threats going against the countries there, with Chile, Cuba, Colombia at least, and Venezuela, of course, are now voicing their opinions and speaking against whatever has happened as far as the capture of Venezuelan president is concerned.
All right, Akshay. So as you mentioned, UNSC to hold urgent session, of course, which you said you will be more or less symbolic. And let's see what happens next. Thank you so much for all those details, Akshay. And moving on, the Cuban government said on Sunday that 32 of its citizens were killed during a U.S. raid in Venezuela aimed at extracting President Nicolas Maduro to face trial in the United States. Havana declared 2 days of mourning set for January 5th and 6th to honor the deceased and announced that funeral arrangements would be disclosed later. Without providing specific details, Defense Minister General Vladimir Pedrino said earlier on state television that the U.S. attack cold-bloodedly killed soldiers, civilians, and a large portion of Maduro's security personnel. Meanwhile, U.S. President Trump said that Cuba was ready to fall after U.S. forces seized the leader of its ally Venezuela while playing down the need for any American military action there.
You know, one of the things that is happening, I think you see it all the time, Howard, you've seen it, that Cuba is ready to fall. You know, Cuba looks like it's ready to fall. I don't know if they're going to hold out. But Cuba now has no income. They got all of their income from Venezuela, from the Venezuelan oil. They're not getting any of it. And Cuba literally is ready to fall. And you have a lot of great Cuban Americans that are going to be very happy about this.
Are you considering U.S. action in Cuba?
I think it's just going to fall. I don't think we need any action. It looks like it's going down. It's going down for the count. You ever watch a fight?
Yeah.
They go down for the count. And Cuba looks like it's going down. What do you think?
All right, and South Korean President Lee Jae-myung will meet with Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing today with closer economic ties as well as the recalcitrant North on the agenda. Lee is the first South Korean leader to visit Beijing in 6 years, and his meeting with Xi on Monday came a day after the nuclear-armed regime in Pyongyang fired 2 ballistic missiles into the Sea of Japan. The pair will meet for an opening ceremony and a summit before the signing of an agreement and a state banquet. The South Korean leader, accompanied by a delegation of business and tech leaders, hopes to secure pledges to expand economic cooperation with his country's largest trading partner. Xi and Lee last met in November on the sidelines of the APEC summit in the South Korean city of Gyeongju, a meeting Seoul framed as a reset of ties after years of tension. And North Korea conducted a hypersonic missile test on Sunday to evaluate its military readiness and deterrence capability. Now, the leader, Kim Jong-un, who supervised the launch, described the test as a crucial strategic measure to sustain and strengthen a credible nuclear deterrent, citing ongoing geopolitical tensions and changing international conditions. According to state news agency KCNA, the missiles successfully struck targets around 1,000 kilometers away in waters east of the country. South Korea's military confirmed that ballistic missiles were launched towards the Eastern Sea, coinciding with South Korean President Lee Jae-myung's official visit to China. The launch came shortly after Pyongyang issued a statement condemning recent U.S. strikes on Venezuela, calling them a breach of national sovereignty. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Ukraine drone attacks forced temporary closure of 3 Moscow airports. Investigation underway in Swiss ski resort bar fires. Police identify all 40 victims. Suspected arson fire damages bridge cables, leaving up to 45,000 Berlin households without power.
Can the US launch a bombing campaign against Iran? The Philippines vessel suffered structural damage. The saga of child sexual abuse is the United States China's debt trap strategy. Truth is stranger than fiction. But sometimes hard to uncover. Trust us to tell the truth, unadulterated and pure, of every story that matters to you.
Exactly what save your country.
You read between the lines, cut the clutter, and connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots at these times with me, only on DD India. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Kuran, and moving on, Ukraine has carried out daily drone attacks on Moscow throughout 2026 so far, Russian Defense Ministry data shows, signaling an apparent escalation from earlier, less frequent strikes on the capital. By midnight on Sunday, Russian air defenses had intercepted 57 drones over the Moscow region, part of a total of 437 destroyed across Russia that day. The pattern marks a shift from earlier attacks that were sporadic or symbolic to sustained pressure. Ukraine has not commented, but Kyiv has increasingly used long-range drones to hit targets deep inside Russia. Ukrainian officials say such strikes disrupt military logistics and energy systems, countering Russia's ongoing missile and drone assaults. And 3 of Moscow's 4 major airports were temporarily closed on Sunday after Ukraine launched dozens of drones targeting the Russian capital, officials said. The incident caused significant flight disruptions, including delays at Vnukovo, Moscow's second busiest airport, according to Russian media reports. Ukraine, which has faced sustained Russian drone attacks during the nearly 4-year conflict, did not immediately respond. Russia's aviation authority, Rosaviatsia, said the shutdowns imposed between 1300 and 1400 GMT were required to maintain flight safety. The airports, Vnukovo, Domodedovo and Zhukovsky, resumed limited operations within an hour. Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said air defenses intercepted at least 27 drones. Well, some flights resumed after flights across Greece were grounded for several hours on Sunday after a collapse of radio frequencies crippled air traffic communications, standing thousands of travelers and bringing airport operations to a virtual standstill. Now, the authorities said the disruption began when most aviation radio frequencies were hit by massive interference, forcing a precautionary shutdown of Greek airspace. Officials described the incident as unprecedented in scale, delaying dozens of flights during one of the busiest weekends of the holiday season. Greece's Civil Aviation Authority said an indeterminate noise impacted radio channels, but the cause was not clear. By Sunday afternoon, limited services were restored after pilots switched to backup frequencies to keep in touch with controllers on the ground. Around 45 flights were leaving Greek airports every hour by late afternoon. But moving on, Iran has announced a major increase in government subsidies as it moves to ease the impact of rising prices and the weakening rial on households. The government says monthly subsidies will rise from 3 million rials to 10 million rials per household, more than tripling the current amount. The money will be credited to household cards that can be used to buy essential goods. Government spokeswoman Fatima said the credit will be deposited monthly and can be used to purchase basic items as well. She added that all Iranian households will be covered under the new scheme. The program will begin in the second week of January under a decree issued by President Massoud. The government has also said that a separate payment of 1 million rials will be increased in line with inflation. Official figures show inflation has climbed above 40%, following a sharp fall in the value of the rial. US President Donald Trump said Iran may face consequences if more protesters die during demonstrations, which has erupted over rising cost of living. And Saudi-backed National Shield forces have been deployed in Mukalla, the capital of Yemen's oil-rich Hadramaut province, a day after seizing control of the area following clashes between rival Saudi and UAE-backed factions. Now, the fighting erupted between forces aligned with Riyadh and the UAE-supported Southern Transitional Council. A military official from the STC said at least 80 of its fighters were killed in the confrontations and subsequent strikes since Friday.
And Turkey has offered to support dialogue among Yemen's rival factions, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said during a phone call with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman on Sunday. Now, Erdogan said Ankara was ready to help bring the parties together. According to his office, Yemen has been in conflict since 2014 when Houthi rebels overthrew the government, prompting a Saudi-led intervention. A newer internal dispute now pits rival group within government-held areas backed separately by Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. Erdogan said Turkey was closely watching developments in Yemen and Somalia, stressing that protecting both countries' territorial integrity is essential for regional stability. And moving on, Portugal's 2026 presidential election is set for January 18th, and all polls indicate that a second round looks almost certain because no candidate is expected to win an outright majority in the first round. Recent polls show a closely divided race. Far-right Chega leader Andre Ventura, independent candidate and former Navy Admiral Henrique, and former Social Democrat leader Luis Marques Mendes are in a technical tie. Ventura's support reflects Chega's rapid rise since its founding in 2019. The party became the second largest force in parliament after overtaking the Socialist in the May general election. However, polls indicate Ventura would likely lose a head-to-head runoff against either Gouveia e Melo or Marques Mendes due to strong opposition to him beyond Chega's core supporters. Well, cables damaged by a fire on a bridge across the Teltow Canal in southwestern Berlin could leave up to 45,000 households without power until 8th of January. Now, possible repercussions from an arson attack on a bridge led to an extensive power outage in parts of Berlin, continued with thousands of households still without electricity and more cold weather expected. The authorities said some 22,000 commercial entities were also affected and mobile phone services and landlines might also be impacted. Affected hospitals and care facilities in the area were receiving aid in the form of emergency power generators. Local police said they are investigating the incident as a possible arson attack. The fire near the Lecherfeld heat and power station damaged several high-voltage cables. Well, the bodies of the 40 victims of the bar fire in the Swiss ski resort of Crans-Montana on New Year's Eve have been identified by the police. The victims range in the age from 14 to 39 years old, with 15 being aged under 18. The youngest were a Swiss girl and a French boy, both 14. The group includes people of Swiss, Italian, Romanian, Turkish, Portuguese, French and Belgian nationalities, as well as a citizen of the UK, France and Israel. In addition to the 40 killed, 119 others were injured. A criminal investigation into the French couple who managed La Constellation bar is underway. A preliminary investigation has found sparklers and bottles being carried too close to the ceiling are the likely cause of the fire. Police said no further details will be released about the victims they had identified out of respect for their families. Switzerland will also hold a national day of mourning on Friday. National President Guy Parmelin said on Sunday, with church bells ringing across the country and a minute's silence planned. And at least 30 people were killed and several others abducted when gunmen attacked a market in Nigeria's Niger state. Witnesses said the gunmen arrived on motorcycles and opened fire indiscriminately. They said the violence was part of a series of raids that began on Friday in the nearby villages Aguara and Borgu. The attack came weeks after gunmen seized more than 300 children and staff of a Catholic school in the state in central Nigeria. Those victims were released after nearly a month in captivity. Police spokesperson Wasiu said the gunmen stormed a Kasuwandaji market in Demo village on Saturday, burning stalls and looting food items. And moving on, at least 26 people drowned and 14 others are missing after a boat carrying farmers and fishermen capsized in northeastern Nigeria. 13 other passengers were rescued. The incident happened when a rudimentary passenger boat going from Jigawa State to Yobe State capsized. Accidents are common in Nigeria's busy rivers, often caused by overloaded boats, poor maintenance or failure to comply with safety regulations. Several people die each year in various accidents along the country's waterways. And still to come on DD India News App. Delhi Assembly to begin 4-day winter session today. .1 magnitude earthquake strikes Assam. And we'll get you weather updates across the country.
Jharkhand will mesmerize you with majestic nature, rich heritage and colorful culture.
Johar.
Johar. It fits perfectly.
Thank you.
Full workout हो गया.
Ready?
Postcards from Jharkhand on National Geographic.
Welcome back. You're watching DT India News. I'm Lepakshi Khurana. Time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Denmark and Greenland call on US President Donald Trump to stop threatening to take over Greenland after Trump repeats need to have control of the island. Venezuela's ousted President Maduro to face New York court. US President Trump reaffirms we are in charge on Venezuela. UNSC to hold urgent session to address escalating crisis. South Korea's President Lee to meet Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping with trade. Pyongyang on the agenda. Lee calls China a very important partner for peace. Prime Minister Modi pays tribute to Somnath Temple's resilience, pens an article, says it stands as glorious as ever, 1,000 years after the first attack, reiterates resolve to build Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. And moving on, Prime Minister Narendra Modi remembers 1,000 years since the first attack on Somnath Jyotirling. On social media platform X, Prime Minister Modi said, and as I quote, Jai Somnath, in the year 2026, we will complete 1,000 years since the first attack on our pilgrimage site of faith, Somnath Jyotirling. Despite repeated attacks, our Somnath Temple stands firm and unshaken even today. Somnath is, in fact, the saga of the pride and indomitable courage of those millions of valiant sons and daughters of India for whom their culture and civilization have always been paramount, unquote. Well, Prime Minister Narendra Modi has reflected on the enduring legacy of the Somnath Temple, saying its survival and revival over the past 1,000 years stand as a testament to India's resilience. In a blog marking a millennium since the first attack on the shrine in 1026 AD, the Prime Minister described the Somnath as a timeless symbol of the nation's civilizational and spiritual strength, rising again despite repeated attempts to destroy it. Prime Minister Modi wrote that Somnath is the eternal proclamation of India's soul. The temple was attacked by foreign invaders whose agenda was demolition, not devotion. The year 2026 is significant for the Somnath Temple. It has been 1,000 years since the first attack on this great shrine. It was in January of 1026 that Mahmud of Ghazni attacked this temple. The temple stands as glorious as ever because of numerous efforts to restore Somnath to its grandeur. One such milestone completes 75 years in 2026, and on May 11th in the year 1951, the restored temple opened its doors to the devotees. The story of Somnath is defined by the unbreakable courage of crores of children of Bharat Mata. Each time the temple was attacked, great men and women stood up to defend it. The sacred duty of rebuilding the Somnath Temple after independence came to the able hands of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. A visit during Diwali time in 1947 moved him so much that he announced that the temple will be rebuilt there. The then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was not too enthused with this development. He did not want the Honourable President as well as ministers to be associated with this special event. But Dr. Rajendra Prasad stood firm. 1,000 years after the first attack in 1026, the sea at Somnath still roars with the same intensity as it did back then. If the Somnath Temple could rise again and again, then we can surely restore our great nation to the glory it embodied 1,000 years ago before the invasions. With the blessings of Sri Somnath Mahadev, we move forward with a renewed resolve to build a Viksit Bharat. An External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, is in Paris as part of his 6-day official visit to France and Luxembourg aimed at deepening the bilateral ties. The External Affairs Minister on Monday will meet senior French leadership and hold detailed discussions with Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs, Jean-Noël Barrot, on progress under the India-France Strategic Partnership, including defense, space, Indo-Pacific cooperation and global issues. Jaishankar will also address the 31st French Ambassadors Conference as guest of honor. An External Affairs Minister, Dr. Jaishankar, visited a textile exhibition titled Textile Matters, Woven Stories Between India and France. He was received by French Minister Eleonore Carriot at the exhibition. The exhibition highlights the deep and long-standing creative ties between India and France through textiles. It showcases hand-woven and handcrafted fabrics, reflecting centuries of shared artistic exchange between the two countries. The displays trace nearly 400 years of collaboration from Mughal-era textiles of the 17th century to contemporary haute couture designs of 2025. The exhibition also brings together works from art, fashion, design and architecture, underlining how traditional craft practices continue to evolve in modern times. Dr. Jaishankar's visit underscores the role of textiles as a living link in India-France cultural relations, symbolizing a shared heritage while opening space for future collaborations.
The discourse of the exhibition, which is about the relationship between France and India through the perspective of the creation with the textiles. And this first room, this antechamber, is a wonderful introduction to the enthusiasm, the curiosity of the French history toward the creation of Indian textile.
The piece was sourced from various locations, and it was really to kind of represent a traditional Parisian apartment enveloped with this gorgeous Indian print. So you can see you've got elements of whimsy, such as the chandelier, which is completely covered, also books that are covered over here, and the idea was to create this sweeping moment of fluid movement of the print.
And moving on, leaders of the Bangladesh Hindu-Buddhist Christian Unity Council met BNP acting chairman Tariq Rahman at the party's Gulshan office in Dhaka on Saturday to express condolences over the death of former Prime Minister and BNP chairperson Begum Khaleda Zia. During the meeting, the minority leaders described Khaleda Zia as a strong and uncompromising leader who played an important role in the country's democratic movement. They said her death was a great loss for Bangladesh and conveyed their sympathy to Tariq Rahman and his family. The leaders also discussed growing concerns over recent incidents of violence against minority communities in different parts of the country. They presented Tariq Rahman with details of these incidents and submitted an 8-point list of demands, urging the BNP to include them as commitments in its election manifesto. And for more on the Bangladesh situation, we have Naval Singh Parmar joining us on the phone line from Bangladesh. Well, Naval Singh, how is the situation now in Bangladesh? Give us the latest situation update.
Well, Bangladesh is gearing up for the upcoming parliamentary election on 12th February this year. Political climate atmosphere is heating up day by day as the dates for poll are approaching. BNP and the other political parties like Jamaat-e-Islami and its allied are gearing up their campaigning. BNP may start its campaign tomorrow or day after tomorrow from Sylhet, as the party is observing mourning after the passing of Begum Khalida Zia and party's chairperson. Law and order situation is day by day deteriorating as elections are approaching. Election-related violence are also increasing. Already fragile law and order in Dhaka and other parts of Bangladesh, where the people of all walk of life, including minorities and media, are subject to violence, murder, mugging, looting, and all kind of violence are noticed frequently. These are the scenario where political violence as well as the criminals are looming large. They are free out of jail. Under Yunus administration, the police is not having a good command on policing, and the other law enforcement agency are also. There is no much coordination among the law enforcement agency, and that's why these things are like that.
All right. So, Naval Singh, as you said, the law order situation is really bad out there. But to address the violence against minority communities, what specific commitments did the Bangladesh Hindu Buddhist Christian Unity Council ask the BNP to include in its election manifesto?
Well, on Saturday evening, leader of minority communities including Buddhists, Hindus and Christians went to meet Tariq Rahman on condolences meet as Begum Khalida Zia and she was her mother as well as former Prime Minister of Bangladesh. So they went for condolence meeting, and there they praised the leadership of former Prime Minister Begum Khalida Zia, as well as they demand and they requested to include their 8-point demands for the safety and security of minority. And specifically, their prominent demands are the speedy trial tribunals, establishing a speedy trial tribunals for perpetrators of minority persecution, compensation for victims, and neutral investigation commission. Their second demand was Minority Protection Act, enactment of a comprehensive law to safeguard minority rights and security in Bangladesh, and they demanded to create for the creation of a dedicated government ministry to address minority issues. Apart from that, the property rights and the safeguard of the minority properties, and they demanded for the more holidays, festival holidays related to minorities, including Buddhist, Christian, and Hindus, and end of discrimination in the Bangladesh based on religion, kind of thing.
All
so
right.
these are the main prominent demand of the minority leaders.
All right. Thank you so much, Naval Singh, for giving us all those details. And moving on, the 4-day winter session of the Delhi Assembly will begin on Monday and will continue till the 8th of this month. During the session, discussions will be held on various issue and development projects. Ahead of the session, Delhi Assembly Speaker Vijendra Gupta inspected the Assembly premises and reviewed the administrative, technical and digital arrangements. The Assembly will be completely paperless for the first time, and MLAs will use the National e-Vidhan application. Now, the app will ensure transparency, efficiency and accessibility in legislative work during the proceedings. And Assam's Guwahati was hit by 5.1 magnitude earthquake on Monday morning. No casualty reported. A National Center for Seismology report said the quake was recorded at 4:17 a.m. in Morrigaon district on the southern bank of Brahmaputra at a depth of 50 kilometers. Many other districts in Assam also felt the jolt. The northeastern region falls in the high seismic zone, making it earthquake prone. And in a step towards strengthening patient-centering health care, the AIIMS Delhi, with support from the Central Reserve Police Force, has operationalized the ASHRAE facility, an initiative aimed at providing safe shelter to patients and their attendants. Now, designed to address the persistent challenge of overcrowding and overnight queues, ASHRAE ensures that patients are no longer compelled to wait on pavements or hospital premises under difficult conditions. The patients arriving at night will be proactively identified and transported to the facility using eco-friendly electric shuttle buses. Upon arrival, each patient will be issued a token number in the order of reporting. The facility provides free food, clean blankets and access to hygienic toilets for both patients and their attendants, ensuring basic comfort and preserving dignity during their stay. And moving on to some weather update now, the Indian Meteorological Department has forecast a light to moderate rainfall or snowfall across several northern regions over the next few days. Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Gilgit-Baltistan and Muzaffarabad along with Himachal Pradesh and Uttarakhand are very likely to experience rain or snowfall on January 5th and 6th. Cold wave conditions likely to lash isolated pockets of Punjab, Haryana and Chandigarh from 5th to 8th of January as well as parts of West Rajasthan during the same period. In addition, dense fog is expected at isolated locations over Bihar, Uttar Pradesh, Rajasthan and West Madhya Pradesh, which could affect visibility and disrupt transport. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Oil prices dip in Asia as US capture of Venezuela's Maduro raises oversupply concerns. Asian stocks rise, gold gains as market weigh geopolitical uncertainty amid Venezuela crisis. Senior National Boxing Championships kick off in Greater Noida with Amit Panghal and Sagar shining. Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. On to some business news now. Oil prices fell modestly in Asian trading on Monday following the dramatic U.S. military operation that captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife on January 3rd. Maduro was facing U.S. narco trafficking charges, was flown to New York for arraignment. U.S. President Donald Trump announced the U.S. would temporarily run Venezuela and deploy American companies to revitalize its dilapidated oil infrastructure. Venezuela, with the world's largest oil reserves, produces just 1 million barrels daily due to underinvestment. Oversupply fears have risen as OPEC Plus held output steady on Sunday, ignoring political crisis after an 18% price drop. Brent crude traded down 0.2% at around $60.75 per barrel, while WTI fell 0.3% near $57. Well, Venezuela holds the world's largest proven oil reserves, totaling 303 billion barrels of primarily heavy crude in the Orinoco Belt. However, output remains stagnant at around 1 million barrels per day due to decades of mismanagement, underinvestment and sanctions. Now, after the U.S. capture of Nicolas Maduro on 3rd of January, U.S. President Donald Trump vowed American oil firms would invest billions to rebuild infrastructure, potentially raising production if sanctions are lifted. Experts estimate years and over $100 billion needed for recovery. Exports have halted under a U.S. tanker blockade, forcing Venezuela's state-run oil company PDVSA to order output cuts in joint ventures with Chevron, CNPC and others as storage fills up, with production dropping further amid diluent shortages. Now, oil prices fluctuated modestly on Monday, with Brent near $61 as Venezuela's global supply share is minimal. Mineral production like gold and coal grew in 2025 but is limited, while Citgo's US refineries face creditor battles. And Asian stocks opened higher on Monday, with MSCI's Asia Pacific Index up by 0.3%, while S&P 500 futures gained 0.1%. Despite U.S. military action capturing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro over the weekend, Tokyo stocks kicked off 2026 with a strong rally on Monday, the first trading day, as the Nikkei 225 jumped over 2.8% to surpass 51,000, building on record highs from late 2025. Now, Japan's finance minister Satsuki Katayama expressed hopes for further record highs during the traditional bell-ringing ceremony, citing robust corporate earnings, AI-driven growth and Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi's expansionary policies. Chip-related shares led gains, tracking U.S. semiconductor strength, while a weaker yen boosted exporters. Analysts forecast moderate rises in 2026, with targets around 54,000 amid Bank of Japan rate hike expectations and global uncertainties. Meanwhile, global gold prices have climbed by 1% to $4,371.29 on Monday, reflecting investor interest amid global uncertainties, while silver prices remain stable, with spot prices hovering around $72.62 per ounce, up by 1.89% from last week. Well, you're watching TD India News Hour. Time now for some sports news. Chelsea stunned Manchester City with a stoppage time equaliser from Enzo Fernandez to snatch a Premier League point at the Etihad. Interim boss Callum McFarlane, promoted from Chelsea's under-21s after Enzo Maresca's exit, set aside up to frustrate the champions. City struck first through Tierney Reinders' fierce finish in the first half. Chelsea grew into the game with Pedro Neto and Liam Delap missing chances, but Fernandez's persistence paid off as he poked home at the third attempt. The draw leaves City 6 points behind leaders Arsenal, while Chelsea celebrated resilience and fight. And the Senior National Boxing Championships began with fireworks in Greater Noida as Amit Panghal and Sagar opened their campaigns in style. Panghal, the 2018 Asian Games gold medalist, dominated Bihar's Usman Mohammad Sultan in the bantamweight division to secure a unanimous win. In contrast, Haryana's heavyweight Sagar had to dig deep before edging past Edwin of Kerala on a split decision. Lal Rambot of Mizoram also impressed, beating Santosh Kumar of Odisha unanimously in bantamweight. This year marks history as both men and women nationals are being staged together at Gautam Budh University, with 600 boxers competing across 10 weight categories each. And the 31st Critic Choice Awards celebrated outstanding achievements in film, with one battle after another emerging as the night's biggest winner. The film took home 3 trophies, including the prestigious award for Best Picture. Paul Thomas Anderson was honoured with the Best Director award for his work on One Battle After Another. In the acting categories, Timothy Chalamet won Best Actor for the performance in Mahdi Supreme, while Jessie Buckley claimed Best Actress for her role in Hamnet. The supporting acting awards went to Jacob Elordi, who won Best Supporting Actor for Frankenstein, and Amy Madigan, who received Best Supporting Actress for her performance in Weapons. Miles Keaton was recognized as Best Young Actor or Actress for his role in Sinners. In other major categories, K-pop Demon Hunters won Best Animated Feature, while Best Foreign Language Film was awarded to The Secret Agent, rounding out a night that honored a wide range of cinematic achievements. Well, it was sweet, cuddly mayhem in Hershey, Pennsylvania on Sunday as thousands of stuffed toys rained down on the ice rink during the Bears' annual Teddy Bear Toss event. The American Hockey League Bears were playing the visiting Rockford Ice Hogs when defender Louis Belpedio scored the first goal of the game in the first period to trigger the toy loss.
the Bears. It's Bear toss, plush pandemonium. Bears of all shapes and sizes in the Hershey Bears, and all for a great cause. Over 60 look, and it didn't take long at all. Put the puck in the net. Good thing.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from Al Fasair in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.